first thing we're going to talk about in this little mini lesson is about rounding numbers. And this may be a review for many of you, but just in case, I just wanted to make sure when you're asked to round a number, you understand what you need to do. So I've underlined some digits here, and those are the numbers that I'm looking to have rounded. So when I say, let's round this 8, then you have to look at the digit to the right of it. If the number to the right of it is less than 5, that digit and all the others are going to go to 0. If it's 5 or greater, then it's going to tell this digit to go up one number, and everything else turns to zeros. So it's a rounding technique, just helping us to learn, just to get an about number. So I want to round this 8 in the hundreds. So the 7 is 5 or greater. So it's going to tell me to turn that 8 to a 9. And then everything behind it becomes a 0. So 871 rounded becomes 900. Let's look at 2. This 2 is also in the hundreds place. We're going to look immediately to the right. If the number is under 5, that number and everything behind it becomes a 0. If it's 5 or greater, it changes this number up 1, and everything in front of it stays the same. So this number is 5 or greater, so again, it's going to tell that number to go up 1. And everything else this way stays the same. These all turn to 0. So I'll have 13,300 because I've rounded to the hundreds. If I had rounded to the thousands, this 2 is less than 5. So it would have told these to become 0, and those would remain the same. That this is rounding to the hundreds, this is rounding to the thousands. So you can see the different spots I put that. And here we have a 6 in the thousand spot being round, that we've asked to round, and we look at the number to the right of it. It's a 1. It's below 5, so it's going to become 0, and everything to its right will become 0. So that number rounds to 46,000. So you may want to go back and look at that and make sure you understand. If this is the number I'm rounding, this is the one who tells it what to do. Here, this was the number I rounded. This is what told it to do. This is the number I wanted rounded. This is what tells it to do. Okay? Also, another thing that sometimes you hear people talk, sometimes you hear different ways that numbers are talked about. A good example of that is when you're in the thousands. Sometimes, especially when we're talking numbers, I'll say that that this number right here, that's 1,500. But it also can be said, it can be renamed as 1,500. Some numbers have a more smooth flow to do that than others. But I just wanted you to see how to do that if you were asked to do such a thing. So when you're looking at your number system, you've got the ones, the tens, the hundreds. Then your next group is in the thousands. You've got 1,000, 10,000s, and 100,000s. And then the next group, if we continued out, would be the millions. But we're not going to go that big today. And we'd have 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. So, and if I had a number like 25, it would go right here, 25. So I want you to look at this number, and we wouldn't say it like this very often, but just in case you need to know that, 215 tens. Now, I wouldn't say that like I'd say this is 1,500, but I want you to understand the concept so when you do hear it. So for 215 tens, what you do is I'm going to look to the tens column, and this number is going to end in the tens column. I'm going to have 215 tens. And when I do that, everything to the right of it, I need to fill in with a 0. So, I hope that you can see that 215 tens is the same thing as 2,150. And again, the way I said that, the way I did it was you take your 215, the last digit goes in the 10 spot. So 215, then you fill everything else in with a 0. So let's look at this one, 4800s. That's a much more common one than we normally use than 215 tens. So I'm going to take the number 48, and it's the last digit of it is going to go in the hundreds. So there's that one, 48, and everything else fills in with a 0. So that's what 4800s look like. Same thing as 4,800. It's just a way when you are asked to rename numbers. Renaming numbers. And the last little bit of review I want to do today is on adding whole numbers and using estimations with that. Whenever I'm adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, I always tend to estimate first. Then when I do the true addition or the true multiplication or division or subtraction, then I know if I'm close. So let's start here with 216 and 472. Right off the top of my head, I do not know that answer, but I know that I can round and get an estimate to see if I'm close. I'm going to do it right above. I'm going to round this. I'm going to round it to the hundreds. This tells it what to do. So that's going to become a 200. It's closest to 200. 472, that 7 is going to tell the 4 to go up. And everything else remain zeros. So if I add those, I can quickly do that in my head. I hope that you can also, and see that the answer of the estimation is 700. So when I go to do the actual addition, I'll know if I'm anywhere close. So I'll add 6 plus 2 is 8, 1 plus 7 is 8, and 2 plus 4 is 6. And so I can see that 688 is very close to 700. I was going to pretend to get this one wrong and tell you 8, 8, and I was going to tell you that 2 plus 4 was 4. And then I think, I'm not very close to 700, so I think that's wrong, and I would have re-added. Okay, so let's do another one. 19,822. So I want to round that up to something I can maybe do in my brain. This 9 could tell the 1 to go up to 20,000. The 3 would tell it to stay the same. And everything else becomes zeros. So I can very quickly do this one in my head. 20 plus 30, I've got 50,000. So my answer should be close when I do this. 2 plus 9 is 11. 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. 8 and 7 is 15. 1 and 9 is 10. And 3 more is 13. 1, 2, 5. So I have 53,541. That's pretty close to 50,000. I think I've got the right answer. If I came up with something like 20,000 down here, then I know that I have done something incorrect. Let's do one last one. 417,000. The 1 tells the 4 to stay the same. The 2 tells the 7 to stay the same because it's under 5. And I can see here, I know, I hope you do too, that 4 plus 7 is 11. And then I've got all my zeros. So this becomes 1,100,000. So I'm going to see how close I am. 13, 7, 10, 17, 4, 11. 1,147,073. So I think I'm pretty close. 1,100,000, 1,104 something thousand. So just a quick little review to give you some hints on that. Hope it's been helpful.